Once in a while, you come across someone you know is going to be great to work with. And that was the case with Stephen Cotter, MD of CIE Tours, a tour operator bringing North American tourists into Europe. So why was this? Well, firstly, CIE Tours have a strong ethical base. For years, their supplier relationships have been centered upon mutual respect and partnership. Nevertheless, they're nothing if not commercial, and Stephen was charged with recovering the business after 2 devastating years of the pandemic. So how would they get on, given all of this, with their sustainability program? The results should never have been in doubt. Stephen and the team totally got it, integrating sustainability and decarbonisation into the DNA of business operations. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Stephen and to talk through their journey. So Stephen, welcome.
Thank you, Patrick. That's a very nice introduction. We've done a lot of work in the last couple of years, but it's been great working with you too. You know, that makes it easier. It makes it so much easier when you come across a company and individuals in that company who know their stuff, know this topic that you don't know anything about, and make it simple for you. So
as a first question, I'm going to take you back to the beginning. And for a lot of business leaders, actually the biggest hurdle for them is getting started. So, you know, can you just describe how you felt at the outset of this process, and you know, what was your feeling, and what were you worried about, and how did it all feel?
Yeah, well, it wasn't a good feeling, to be honest, because you know, when we came out of COVID, we had been talking and thinking about sustainable actions and strategies before COVID. COVID happened, that took over everything. Sustainability had to got pushed to the side because we were so worried about the business surviving. And then it was only after the restart, and we had one good year and we were very comfortable, and financially we felt more comfortable again, then we could turn our attention to sustainability. It's very broad, it can be very technical. There's terminology you come across, you don't know what it means. You have to ask, you know, stupid questions. You think they're stupid questions because you have to educate yourself. So it's difficult to know where to start and how to get your arms around it. And then I suppose as a business, you know, who's going to do this work? So because it's so broad and so difficult to know, you know, where to start, you don't even know what sort of skills you need, what sort of individuals you need. So the management team ends up sort of taking on a lot of these responsibilities and trying to do it themselves, and that will get you so far. And then at some point, you have to really clarify what's needed to be done and get dedicated resources in. So we developed a responsible tourism strategy. So we got a consultancy over in the US that helped us with this, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without them. And that was a very broad sort of strategy. It covered a lot of different areas in terms of social and environmental and economic, and we thought that fitted with our business. We operate in a lot of communities and rural locations in Ireland, Scotland, and Iceland. So from an economic point of view, providing, you know, much needed employment and jobs in those areas is important, and we've been doing that for many years. We've been doing that before we even knew that was sustainability. That's our business. So yeah. So we have a lot of activity in there around the environment. We need to look at the impact that our business has on the environment, mainly carbon, and most of our business is Americans coming over to Europe, so there's a big carbon impact there. So that was the first point for us, was to develop a responsible tourism strategy, and then out of that, we developed a carbon strategy and did a big carbon project, and that's where we started working with Terra Verde. And again, would have been impossible for us to do that without the leadership from and advice from Terra Verde and the experience that you guys have. So, and then really the heavy lifting and a lot of the rubber sort of hit the road with the carbon strategy, and we've done an awful lot since. And actually in between those two, one of the great things that we did when we developed our responsible tourism strategy first, we got all our drivers and guides together. So we have annual driver guide meetings. We've about 200 drivers and guides across all the destinations that we go to. And we did a training session with them We really encourage the drivers and guides to try and educate and try to bring up these topics as we're doing their commentary during the tour. And thankfully, the drivers and guides, they really embrace that. And one of the things that we did last year, we have a detailed questionnaire that people complete at the end of their tour. And we put in two new questions into that questionnaire. And one question was asking, did your driver or guide bring up these topics? And we're delighted that 96% of people, we got 30,000 questionnaires back, and 96% of people said yes, they did. So that's hats off to the drivers and guides for doing what we asked them to do. But then more importantly, the second question was, in those discussions and in that commentary that the driver or guide brought up about sustainability related items, did that change your perception of tourism and sustainability? And 81% of people said yes, that did change their perception. So I was really, really happy with that, because that's a big part of what we want to do.
When I said, Stephen, that you guys nailed it because you incorporated sustainability into your business operations, what you've just said absolutely speaks to that. You realized that you had a captive audience, let's say, within the coaches, and that the drivers and the guides had a fantastic role to play in that. And Americans, probably most people's feeling is they're not automatically the most sustainable people, but to get 81% of them saying tourism can really make a difference to my perception of sustainability and how it can and positively influence me was really testament to the work you did in training those drivers and guides and giving them the content of all of the different suppliers and what they're doing and the great local initiatives that they're using. So that's a fantastic initiative.
Yeah, and you're right. And thankfully, they have the material. There's more and more activities happening now at the hotels. We're going to restaurants. We're going to farm to fork menus. There's solar panels in hotels. There's water conservation, all those things. So they have the material there, which is great. But yeah, that was it was a great first step. It really gave us a lot of encouragement to see that reaction.
Food waste is probably one of a key area. A third of the world's food production is lost. Many businesses waste up to 50% of their food. So you and I walked into a partner hotel in Dublin where we saw some great activity on food waste. Do you just want to speak to that a second and give a flavour?
Absolutely. And so it's the Hyatt Centric is the hotel that one of the partners that we use. It's part of a group, and they're super hotel. Our customers absolutely love it. To take great care of our customers, and we went over to have a chat with them, and I could have kissed him when I decked him as the manager. I could have kissed him when he started telling us about all the things that he was doing. It was so they're so active. But they took us into the kitchen and they showed us the bin setup that they had, the waste disposal setup, and they had these all in different locations in the restaurant, in the kitchen, and different areas in the hotel where they'd segregated into 3 sections, 3 different categories of waste. And they'd really, really clear labelling in each section. So it was very, very clear what goes where. And then he explained that they measured every evening, they measure the waste and it's recorded and everything is measured. And then he took us down to the basement where all the big storage bins are. And he showed us that it's all recycled, it's all composted or recycled, very, very little sort of black bin sort of waste that goes to the landfill. But really proactive. The team had really embraced it. They told us also about their breakfast, that they're doing a menu breakfast now instead of a buffet breakfast. That's really, really reduced food waste. It's saved cost because they're not buying this food to throw it out. The customer is happier because they're getting this menu for breakfast instead of a buffet. So the perception straight away is this is better. There's plenty of food there. They're not skipping on food or anything like that. They can give them extra food if they want, but it's a win-win. He said they're making more money out of it. They're spending less on food. The waste has gone down, and the customers are happy. So, these are the stories that we're so happy when we come across them. We want to grab them. We want to share them with other people. And I've told so many people that story since we visited that hotel. So and I've no doubt that over the next few years we'll see lots of other places coming on stream and embracing those.
Well, you're an asset-light business, so you don't own planes, you don't own hotels. Your product is the sum parts of all of your suppliers.
Yeah.
So I think I mentioned it in the introduction that you've always valued those supplier relationships. Can you just talk through a little bit about how potentially sustainability has reinforced and maybe even moved on those relationships into a new dimension?
Yeah, look, we've been in business since 1932, so this is our 92nd year in business. We've been around for a long time. We've established incredible relationships with our suppliers. I mean, we don't jump in and out of bed with people every year. We've long-standing relationships with coach companies, with airlines, with hotels, with visitor attractions. So I'd like to think that we do good business with them, and it's good business for us and good business for them, and they really appreciate that. And I think we've an opportunity. We're the biggest operator from the USA into Ireland, for example, and possibly into Scotland on coach tours. So we really have an opportunity here to show a bit of leadership, I think, to embrace sustainability, to work with these suppliers, and to get the message out there, and to further strengthen those relationships that we have, because everybody wants to be sustainable. You don't meet anybody that says, I'm not interested in that. Everybody's interested in it. They're just trying to figure out how to do it and what's the best way to do it. So I think we've got a really good opportunity where we're owned by the CIE Group, which is it's a government agency that's responsible for public transport in Ireland. So public transport now has become a big part of the solution to decarbonisation and to travel. So there's a big investment by the Irish government into the CIE Group to improve the public transport network, and it's all being done in a very sustainable way. So they are very clued into sustainability and on big targets and goals. So again, because we're part of that group, that's something we have to be part of too. So there's a huge amount of support from the group for us in terms of investing in sustainability and coming up with plans and spending money on things that we need to spend money on. So we're fortunate in that regard. But again, we are fortunate with the connections that we have and the relationships that we have. When we have approached people to partner with them, it's nobody has said no. Everybody wants to work with it. So work with us. So that's very encouraging too.
That was very clear, and you hear a lot about these sustainability surveys and reaching out to suppliers, and you can almost hear the tumbleweed coming back because the suppliers don't respond. I've got to say, you guys were in complete sharp contrast, because every supplier put their hand up, stood forward, wanted to work with CIE Tours, and that was quite democratic, because you were able to take some of the good practice from the larger companies who've got resources and got expertise and are on a journey of their own, and share it with some of those smaller guys who just don't have the expertise, don't have the resources, don't have the knowledge. Do you just want to speak a little bit to that, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of our plan. We, along with Terra Verde, we took a stab a year and a half ago at measuring the carbon impact for the entire company. And we went through the process. We did that. There was a lot of assumptions had to be made, and we could see clearly from that process, out of all the carbon that's generated by the business, by people travelling, only 2% of that carbon is we direct control over. It's the office that we have here in Dublin, the office we have in the US. As you said, we're asset light. We don't own our coaches. We don't own hotels. We just have these offices. So only 2% we control, and obviously 98% then is in our supply chain. A lot of it is, the majority is the airlines and the carbon from from flying over and back across the Atlantic, and then the hotels and the visits and the restaurants that we deal with. So if we want to do anything around decarbonisation, it has to be, we have to do whatever we can do internally here, but that's quite small in the overall scheme of things. We really have to work with our supply chain and rely on our supply chain to to do similar things, similar initiatives to reduce carbon. So we a big part of what we want to do is learning, like we did with the Hyatt Centric, and sharing, really acknowledging that different companies are at different stages in the journey. So like the biggest thing, Patrick, really, that the light bulb for me is that when you're having these conversations with people that are very, very active doing these things, it's now commercially makes more sense. It's cheaper to do these things. They make more money by being sustainable. So that's the big thing, big change for me, that, you know, up until maybe a few years ago, it was always felt that to do things in a more sustainable way or more environmentally friendly was going to cost you more. But that's not the case anymore. So I think once that gets in there with you know, financial controllers and people, when they hear those things and they pay back with energy bills going up so much, the payback is now shorter. It makes a lot more sense now. So now there's a bit of a race on, I suppose, to embrace, you know, LED lighting, sensor lighting, all those things, because it makes sense. So it's good
and even water. You know, we were at a session yesterday when some people were talking that they're saying, oh well, water, it's a kind of a secondary issue. You know, with the cost of water, actually you're seeing hotels in Ireland who are saving 50, 60, 70,000 euros a year on their water bill. Yeah. And you kind of, you know, there's a lot of talk that sustainability can be looked at as a negative, but this is a real positive. You say, you know, people, hoteliers saving money, improving their bottom line, being able to invest in their staff. You know, there's all sorts of win-wins here. Well,
it's important that all these new initiatives are put in place by hotels and by the airlines in particular. I mean, that's a big thing that you just hope, and we know that they are working in parallel on looking at innovations, looking at new technologies that haven't even been developed, that maybe in 15, 20 years will be used by airlines, that will make tourism sustainable into the future. And that's what everybody wants. People love traveling. Everybody wants to travel. They get such enjoyment from traveling. Nobody wants to stop traveling. It's forecast that travel is going to grow even more, but something has to be done in the background to make sure that you know, the damage is minimized. So so it's an exciting time.
Well, another core innovation that I think I would like to speak about a little bit and get your experience on is with the coaches. You know, clearly, the coach travel is a key element. Everybody sees coaches buzzing around cities which are electric based. Yeah. But, you know, what they have to realize is those coaches are only doing 80, 90, 100 kilometers a day, whereas a lot of your coaches will do 400 or 500 kilometers a day in taking people, which is just out of the range of battery driven. So and I think, again, there's been a synergy with your parent company here, but you guys have embraced another alternative which can really be an innovation and make a difference. Do you just want to speak a little bit to that, Stephen?
We decided that with the coach company that we use, Cronin's Coaches in Cork, we decided that we're going to operate all those coaches on those departures using HVO, the biofuel. So that's there's a big impact on carbon, or reduction in carbon by using that fuel. Unfortunately it's a little bit more expensive. It's about 10% more expensive than diesel. It's difficult to source it, but thankfully there's more and more supply coming on stream here in Ireland. But we worked with this company. They've guaranteed us that they're going to have HVO in that coach for every departure this year. It's a very, very small stepping stone for us in the right direction. Everything seems to be going fine at the moment. There's no damage to the engine in the vehicle. You can just put this stuff into a diesel vehicle, and it doesn't have to be adapted in any way. It runs smoothly. So it's our intention that we're going to expand this, and we're going to do more of these. We're going to identify more tours next year and the year after where we can roll this out. And a big part of rolling it out is the availability of the supplies, so the coach can refuel at different points along the itinerary, and they can get access to this fuel. So we're just not there yet with all that availability, but hopefully in the next few years that will be there. As you said, electric doesn't look at the moment isn't a solution for our type of business, because our coaches are in a different location every night. They don't go back to the one depot every night to get charged. So they're in a different geographical location every night. Also, hydrogen looks as if that technology could be a solution, but that's some way off. And also we have to be very conscious of the boot space that we need for luggage for the 40 guests that we have in the coach. So some of these new technologies take up that boot space. So the better innovations, I suppose, or the cleaner innovations maybe are 5, 6, 7, 8 years out. But at the moment, we can start using the H3O, and we're going to do that, and we already have, and we're going to expand that out. So that's a small action that we decided to take, and we've following the plan that we did with you guys, we set out a path, and that path had a number of different actions on it, and that was one. So I mean, that was one of the things that Terra Verde did for me and for the management team. You made it very clear what the plan was going to be over the next few years. Up until that point, it was a bit fluffy and a bit fuzzy, and I couldn't really see what the actions were going to be, what specifically were we going to do. So you guys come in and you really helped us develop what that plan was going to be over the next few years, and that clarified what resources we were going to need. So I'm delighted that we took on a dedicated resource. Ken Lyons started with us back in April. So he's full-time focused on sustainability and our responsible tourism plan. Ken has initiated some trials what we're doing here with food waste in our kitchen here, with small things that we're doing here in the office. And those small things in the overall scheme of things might seem a bit insignificant. That's, it's so small as what's doing. And the point that Ken made, which I really loved, was, if we are engaging with our supply chain, and we're talking to hotels and airlines and coach companies and asking them, what are you doing? What initiatives do you have? What targets do you have? How are you going to meet them? We have to be able to demonstrate that we're talking the talk and we're walking the walk here ourselves, that we're doing things, even though they're small things, we're taking on to do these actions. So, and I think that's you could say that for all the businesses. If every business had that attitude and every business did that little bit themselves, then things that would all work up to a big change. So, add up to a big change. We've a pilot project again that we set up with you guys. This was your suggestion around the measurement of carbon. We had that first attempt at it with you guys based on our 2022, which is wasn't our busiest year because it was a recovery from COVID, but that was our baseline. Our intention is that every year we're going to do this measurement again, but all these assumptions that we made and the standards that we had in there to come up with our original calculation, we want to be able to swap out those assumptions with real data from our supply chain. So we set up a pilot scheme with about 10 suppliers across airlines, across coach companies, hotels, visits. We've engaged with them. We want to understand more about their measurements, how they're doing things, what their initiatives that they have. And our plan is we're going to start swapping out these assumptions with live data as we get it over the next few years. So we'll build this model, we'll develop this model, and it'll become more and more accurate linked into our supply chain. So that's a super idea. It's something it has to be done. We have to start measuring. CSRD is coming down the line now in a couple of years. So we have to start reporting our measurements. So and we're going to develop this system, in tandem with Terra Verde, and Ken's going to lead it on our end to get more and more accurate and rich information from our supply chain.
Two points I'd take from there. One is absolutely, Ken is a great asset for you. He understands the sustainability angle, but he's also a great guy to work with. And for us as Terra Verde, but also for the suppliers, for the staff, he's a great communicator. He puts it in language that people really understand. So he's able to relate to people and get that education and communication. So I think you definitely have a gem with Ken. And also on the green team, that piece of getting it into the front line, having somebody from marketing who really understands how sustainability will impact on marketing, having your contracting heads, in the UK, on the team, so he understands, well, how am I going to weave this into my piece and my contracting and purchasing piece with the hotels? All of this becomes really important, and it ingrains it in the DNA of the business. So that's really fantastic. And I suppose The second thing is the measurement. Absolutely, you know, transparent disclosure is the name of the game, and you know, actually being able to do that and being able to do it in a robust and authentic manner is really important, and you guys have embraced that really well. Given those feelings of trepidation at the beginning, and how am I going to get? How do you feel? How are you feeling now at the after 2 years? You've got other business pressures coming onto you as well. You know, you're MD of the business. How are you feeling about the sustainability program now?
Well, 100 times better than we did a couple of years ago. We've done a huge amount in a couple of years, but we know there's a huge amount of work has to be done. You know, we've just myself and the management team have just worked on our strategy and our 5-year plan, and you know, sustainability underpins that now. You know, sustainability is in there. It's part of it's going to be part of our vision and mission statement that we're working on. So that, you know, that wasn't, we didn't have that focus 5 or 6 years ago, because that it just wasn't done by a lot of companies. So it's a key part of the business now, and we're definitely better organized. There's an awful lot more to do. You know, one of the things that we are going to do is, and again, this was a suggestion from you guys, which was an excellent solution. I think, you know, the carbon that's generated by the business, we in terms of carbon offsets, we couldn't afford to offset that completely. It just would be impossible, because there's so much involved, mainly from the transatlantic travel. And we've set up a climate compensation fund, and we're just going to start that off this year. And we're looking at projects. We're going to create a budget, and we're going to partner with different projects that are happening in the communities that we serve. And well, at the moment, we're looking around for those projects. We're doing some due diligence, but we want to put money back into these projects. For example, it could be rewilding the boglands in Ireland that's happening. There's some farm projects, biodiversity projects that are happening over in the west of Ireland, right in the area where our coaches are travelling through. So if we can put something back into those communities and do some good there, that's a big part of our plan. We've in the inner city here in Dublin, there's a lot of social sort of challenges, and that obviously impacts tourism. So we want to see if we can partner with something that might help in those areas. So that's a big part of our plan, is investing some money back in.
And in areas that just resonate with your business, you know, they're key to the operations. They're not divorced somewhere in a third party. They're really part of the CIE Tours.
It's very closely engaged to what we do. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, another thing that we have done, which is a real big statement of intent. You know, we signed up to the Glasgow Declaration. So we're very dedicated to this. We're absolutely going to do it. We've got a plan. We're going to ramp it up as we go through the next few years. So in terms of how do we feel now, an awful lot better. Understand an awful lot more about, you know, what's possible, what isn't possible. We have an all-company meeting this afternoon, like a town hall meeting for an hour, and on the agenda is a sustainability update. So we're going to give everybody an update for 10-15 minutes, what we're doing, how we've been doing it, and definitely people are embracing that. People want to work for a company that's doing the right thing, so we're getting a lot of engagement from the teams, which is excellent too.
Well, especially in the travel and tourism space, where, you know, anybody watching this will know we have difficulty in recruitment and retention of young people. Sustainability is a magnet for young people, and they really want to work for a sustainable business. So it enhances the attractiveness from that recruitment side too, which I think is also really important. But I do want to just sort of concentrate a little bit on the courage that you showed, because, you know, just to sort of put this in perspective, the main product that you sell is the land arrangements. You will sell an air ticket, but it's optional. It's not part of the package. Now, many land companies who do a similar kind of activity didn't count that air. And especially they didn't count, if they sold the air, fine, but if they didn't sell the air and the customer made their choice, when they were measured their carbon footprint, they didn't include that. CIE Tours were the exception, because right from the outset, you guys said, we're going to include all our air. They're not coming over for any other reason other than to take a CIE tour. We're going to include all that air, whether we sold it or not. And that was a courageous, and it's proved to be a good judgment call too, because many of those companies that didn't include that are now getting questions asked. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to sort of talk through your thinking on that, but I was very impressed that, we soon came to a conclusion that that was the right thing to do, even though that increased your carbon footprint from the outset.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, the reality is you can't get away from what it adds up to, whether we are directly involved in it or indirectly. I mean, the nature of what we do, we operate coach tours around Ireland, around Scotland, around Europe. Our market is America and Canada. So unless people have a time machine or something like, they generally have to fly across the Atlantic. And whether we organise that for them or whether they organise it themselves, the nature of what we do, this is what it's generating. It's generating this much damage to the environment. So there's no point in kidding yourself on trying to, look for nuances in it where you can reduce it down. You might as well, it is what it is. You might as well call it out. So, and look, that's what we decided to do. But I mean, it is, you mentioned other companies might have changed since. So, I mean, that is a dangerous area, the greenwashing and being, not following up strategies and policies with actions. That is the danger. And it's good to see a lot of big global corporations getting called out for that. It is all, as you said to me before, it's all about actions. You can have all these glitzy policies and statements and nice sections on your website. It's the activities under them that's the important stuff. And
well, that brings us back to the HVO. We know it's an interim measure. We know it's not the permanent. We hope that hydrogen might be for your market. Hydrogen is at least, as you say, 6 or 7 years in the development. But rather than waiting for that, you've done something now that probably reduces the carbon by 50, 60% or 60%. It's more expensive, but you've taken the hit on that, and that really, it shows that you were prepared to take action right from the get-go.
With the HVO, a very small step in the right direction, and but again, so that's our idea, and we're prepared to pay a little bit extra money for it. It wouldn't be possible if we didn't have a good supplier and we've 4 or 5 different coach suppliers. They're all super. I know if I had approached any of them, they would have done the same thing, but again, when I approached Cronin's, because the particular tour we wanted to do it on, it was a 7-day tour, it made sense to do it in that tour. Absolutely no problem at all. Leave it with me. We look into it and we'll get it done. So that's extra. It's extra hassle for them. It could be easy. They could turn around and say, we just don't want to do that. We've enough going on. But to take on to do it, and I think that's where the relationships come in, and the good, long-standing relationships. That's where the value is. And
ultimately, businesses like yours, who are key, providers into Ireland and the UK and Italy, then coupled with your parent company, when big producers like this start to get behind the production of HVO, that helps with the scale up, and that helps bring the price down, and it helps make it available for more people. So it really is a win-win when guys like you get behind this and start to support these innovations and make them cost effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
So look, I've really enjoyed the conversation. It speaks to the passion that you show for the industry, Stephen. It speaks to me that CIE Tours sits at that pivotal point in the value chain that you can both influence upstream positively with your suppliers, but also, as you say, downstream, and the results of the survey were fantastic. So you're able to influence both sides of the value chain coin, and that's really makes a difference when the travel industry starts to behave in that way, and that hopefully that catches on, and we become we grow that message.
Well, I think it has to. I mean, there's people, there's so much change happening in that whole area, and it's not going to stop people. I mean, we can see the planet at the moment. We can see the last few years it's noticeable the climate, how it's changing. So there's no choice there. But I'd just like to say it's been an absolute pleasure working with you guys. And like I said at the beginning, you just made it simple for us. You took the complication out of it. You give us a great roadmap. And I definitely think, with all the background that you've had of the travel industry is fantastic, having that mix like Ken that we have here, having somebody who understands hospitality and travel, understands the constraints and how it works, but then has this environmental and sustainability sort of background too. That's critical. We're a travel company. That's what we do. That's our priority is travel. We're developing tours. We're contracting. So this is a new part of our important part of our business that has come along. But we're going to need ongoing expertise from people like you who are full time on that. So yeah, I highly recommend Trevor Verde and Patrick and all the team.
Thank you, Stephen. The feeling is mutual. It's really been a pleasure. So Stephen Cotter, MD, CIE Tours. Thank you very much.